welcome to another session of Sukrit Life. As Sukrit Life brings you in contact with inspirational people who have done a lot for the communities and who would like to share their passion with us so that collectively we are able to support the global community. So today in this series we are going to talk to Dr. Ramini Johnson, a very well known professional in the space of education, community development, and she works for a large federal agency in Australia. Ramini has done amazing work in the space of community development specific to skill capability building. Back in India, when she was working there, she has been involved with large corporate organizations under their corporate social responsibilities and other things. So I would like to welcome Dr. Ramini Johnson. Okay, Dr. Ramini, thank you very much for your time today. Would you like to share with us some of your experiences and specific to what you have seen in terms of equality in the society and your opinion and your experiences about women empowerment, because we know that women empowerment is a major social issue all over the world. So would you like to share some of your experiences?
Yes, thank you, Shekhar. Thank you very much for introducing me to this platform. Women empowerment is something that we all need to work on. It is a global on level we need to discuss, clarify our point, and also it should start from oneself. I have been associated with corporate organizations where I did a lot of projects which mainly focused on the capacity building of women. I chose those projects not because it is close to my heart, and then it's because when we say empowerment, it is actually providing that capability to people to be by themselves, be on their own, have that sustainable energy, get that capacity to be able to provide livelihood not just for their own family, but they're also to contribute something to the community. So most of the projects that I dealt with back in India, it was either the government projects where most of the women in a village would be educated on what their day-to-day issues are and how they could be overcoming those issues. And because it is the root cause of all the capacity building is education. So we cannot talk about awareness at this stage because we already are aware. We know that there is a lot of work that need to be done in the area of empowerment, especially women and children. Once we know that these are the issues, our contribution should to be how we can help them, how we can build this capacity to them. What are the available resources? For example, if I can say an example of one of the projects which was very close to my heart, was working in a village with a group of people. Mostly all the men were bootleggers. They had no jobs. They were doing nothing. And what we can expect the women to do? They know that this is not the right thing. The men were not doing the right thing. So we found out the problem was unemployment. Unemployment for men, and women were not engaged. And I found out, after speaking to few women and a group of women there, almost being one among them, because I speak the language which is Tamil. So I spoke to them, and most of them are highly talented. They are all hidden gems. The only problem is they were no one to actually identify those talents, encourage them, and then provide them some sort of support in what they do. And once after communicating with them, I found out that most of them, some of them could actually paint, some of them could stitch clothes, some of them were able to just do cleaning work and do good at it, and they are very good at what they were doing. So all they needed was identification of their own talent and see how they can productively use those talents to be able to get a livelihood and employment, and at the same time recognize the self-esteem of oneself, which is very important. So that's where I think the real empowerment of people, especially women, when one recognize one's own capacity and to be able to capitalize on that capacity and to be able to sustain that capacity and develop on that.
That's really great to hear. So, would you like to share if someone from within our global community or someone working within a company wants to contribute towards that, how can they start on this? Because from what I understand and what we hear from people, that the challenges of women empowerment lies predominantly in the regional and rural areas. So with so many challenges of logistics, of education, of resources, can you throw some light on that from your experience? How should one go about it, and how can people actually help in making a difference?
Do you know the best thing is self-help is the best help? So during a few of the projects that I worked in the rural community, what I used to do is I was literally not there on a day-to-day basis. They have to manage their own lives. So in the beginning, what we used to tell them is to identify among themselves who would be able to volunteer and support. And those were picked up like master trainers. So they never knew that they are the change makers. They are the people who are actually helping not only themselves but are helping the entire community. In fact, we as the project leaders, we take up those projects, adopt those villages, support them, but they are the ones they are working on the project. They are the frontline soldiers, at the same time they are the beneficiaries. So even without knowing that they are in the project and they are helping themselves and they are helping the entire community, they will start seeing the change by themselves. And once they start seeing the change, and once they are being directed how these changes could happen, and when they start working on their own project, it becomes something like a second nature for them. Then once it is completed and they have seen the changes and the sustainability of their life, then they ask for more. What can we do next? How can we improve this? So this is what is exactly needed for us, because we have to look within ourselves, like what can be done, and we need directions on how this can be done. So what can be done is the identification of all the project leaders like myself and others who are involved with the project will be able to identify. But how is something that we work in partnership and we do the hand-holding with the local community, as long as they are able to understand and then get on to the work. But once they have get on to the work, they are the masters. And they tell us how the changes have taken place.
Oh, that's really great to know. So I think this is a great point you made, that identifying amongst the group you're going to support who the leaders could be, and then through them you bring about the changes by empowering them first.
That's right.
So they can then make the difference and they can educate others in the community.
Of course. So it is like a change effect, because the change cannot be happening in a day, and so is any project. So if we take a project of capacity building in any area, in any of the village or the community that we want to build capacity for them in terms of bringing livelihood, or in terms of educating them, or in terms of making those changes in the community. The master trainers or the people whoever we identify them, they should be volunteers, having a profound understanding of why we have chosen them, what they are able to contribute, and they should be able to understand how those changes can actually contribute to their betterment of their life. So once they have understood that, okay, this is how the changes are going to take place and this is what I have to do. So all the project leaders need to do is to handhold them and to direct them, provide them the support, be it resources, or be it supply of volunteers, or be it any other resources that may require for them to be able to proceed in the sustainability project. Then once they start seeing the changes, they will be the change agents, and they will be the leaders of the project, where they can actually translate this energy to others in the community.
Yeah, that's really great to understand. So, Ramini, from your experience, would you like to share the actual problems or which lies, and how big this problem is? Because everybody talks about women empowerment, and there are many different ways people try to support them. We know that there are major companies who have supported many women in the rural communities by providing them different type of, say, they're providing sewing machine, teaching them how to stitch garments, and then supporting them so they become entrepreneurs. But it's all good when you hear these stories, you feel motivated. But what is the ground reality? Could you just highlight some of the core problems which we need to address as global citizens, so that we can collectively work towards removing this issue from the communities?
See, the ground reality is a lack of understanding of what are the benefits that will be in the future when I actually work on this project. So lack of understanding of the benefits of the project, and also there has to be someone who is continuously monitoring the progress, because as you said, everything is honky-dory. Then we invest X amount of dollars into a business, and then into a project, and then we want to see the results, and then we work on that. But if we are not continuously monitoring on whether the progress is happening or not, or what are the barriers actually, sometimes what will happen is, in the past when I have worked in certain projects, the women will be highly supported by the families, but later on, due to other familial pressures and their own commitments in their lives, they will not be able to support, or they will not be able to participate in the project. So their contribution will be just something like negative in the project. And if we have one negative thread within the project, so the entire project will be affected. So when one person is just walking away, we need to have at least 5 hands supporting us in the project, so that the project is progressing continuously. So there are a few other barriers that I can say when it comes to women being participating in the projects, not just themselves not contributing in or not being able to participate in the project. It is also sometimes due to their ill health of their children, and some weathering conditions, and their own health conditions, and there are so many other things which they may not be willing to discuss with the project leaders or their own chosen master volunteers, which for some reason they may just walk out of the project. So all we need to ensure is, are we giving them the support, sufficient support for them to be able to work in this project? Are we able to continuously monitor their progress? Are we able to understand what are the actual barriers that is not allowing them to be able to participate in this project, and how we can overcome these barriers. Maybe supporting them by having a conversation with them, which is totally, ensuring their privacy and confidentiality. Because in the past I have spoken to a few women who have dropped out of the projects just for some reason which is lack of understanding and knowledge. So that's where the project leaders and the volunteers have to play a massive role in this area, where they can actually educate the participants, encourage them, and there are so many people who will discourage them. So we need to ensure that they are not getting discouraged, and also constantly, if someone is able to make them understand the benefits in the long standing and in the future, that what will actually happen once the entire project has worked out, I'm sure people will understand and then start contributing in this project.
Thank you so much for that, Ramini. Now, is there any particular empowerment project which you were involved in where you saw some really great results? Would you like to share just briefly any one of those projects which you feel proud of?
There were a number of projects that I was involved, and every single project that I worked is close to my heart. But the one project where I initially mentioned at the start of this interview was a project in a village where the entire community did have no understanding of how to lead a peaceful life. And most of them were all improvising on their present situation. If they had money for that day, they sang and drank and forget about tomorrow. What is tomorrow? And it was very hard for us, project leaders, to make them understand that it is not just tomorrow for them, but it is tomorrow for their children. What about their children? What are we leaving them? What resources are we giving them? And why we are not educating them? Why they are not going to school? So these are the things, the challenges that was there in the project where I worked in that village. And we actually anticipated the entire project will be for 24 months, but then it took more than that. Not because we had to start from the basic understanding and educating people, but also in terms of providing livelihood and then providing them education on how they can sustain themselves and what sort of capacity building programs are available for them, identifying the local talent, identifying the local resources, use all the local resources to be able to help themselves. For example, the entire village had heaps and heaps of banana trees, and they never knew that a banana tree is like gold. Every single part of a banana can be used. So we worked with them and told them and educated them on the available resources that the village had, how they can improve on their resources, how they can capitalize that. And I think by 12 months, there was a massive change among the men. They started working, they started looking around opportunities on how they can make money, and once they were economically sustainable, then they started looking for how they can improve their family standards, and then they thought of not only just for themselves, how they can support their wives, and then once their wives, when they see their family is happy, then they started how I can send my children to school, and then this is what the changes we were expecting. It is very hard to tell them on a single day that, okay, if you start going to work, if you stop all these, your family is going to be happy, and then your children are going to go to school, and then 12 years down the line, once the child is educated, he is going to get a job. So those are promises that we really can't guarantee someone. We are not there to make promises to them. We are there to make them understand how they can change their own lives. And it is they have to do these changes, and to make them understand those changes, we need to handhold and then work with them throughout the project. So even though the project took more time than we anticipated, but at the end of the day, it was such a fulfilling and satisfying project that it is still close to my heart. It is almost 12 years now, but still it is a very close project to my heart.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. So, in this particular time where lots and lots of companies and organizations are happy to contribute something towards communities as part of their corporate social responsibilities, in brief, would you like to give them any message to them of what they should do and what way they could contribute, so that the issue of women empowerment, which is the core thing we are trying to address, how can we address and how can they contribute towards that? So what would be your message? Would you like to give any message to them?
Of course, thanks very much for hearing me out for the past 15 minutes. What I would like, and I can't emphasize more than this, is whenever we are talking about capacity building and sustainability of lives of people and making changes in their lives, what we need to look at is what are the resources available for them. But definitely, if I can say this, by God's grace, the entire universe is bestowed with immense energy and resources. The problem is we are not identifying or tapping the right resources. And also, we need to have a dedicated project personnel where we can design the project, see how that can be benefited to the entire community, and have a reasonable timeline and milestones where we can, what are achievables and how we can achieve them, allocate appropriate resources for all those achievables, and then encourage and support and handhold the entire project participants so that we are seeing little milestones of success and for the entire project. So my message would be is participate, contribute, handhold, support, and you will see the success of the project.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ramini.
Thank you.
It's really been a pleasure talking to you, and I believe that all of you would understand a lot of the technical aspects of managing such projects in supporting the communities. And let us take a pledge that we join hands together to see that this problem slowly moves out of the communities. Thank you very much.
Thank you.